to go to bot. Because the thing that we saw consistently today was Viper and Mako getting a lot of 2v2 kills.
Yep.
And when I think about some of the struggles that we saw from Damwon against T1, I actually think it was that bot lane. When he didn't get his hands on Jhin or Ziggs, Ghost was put in a very difficult position by Gumayusi and Keria. And I think that given how aggressive Viper and Mako have shown to be in today's series, this is an avenue with which they can very much look to try and leverage, because multiple times T1 tried to attack Khan. He was 0-2, 0-3, 0-4, yet he always found a way to have
seed this year.
Like, I actually think that they're playing pretty well. I think that they're playing pretty well throughout this event, and I think that they're not as exploitable as they were at MSI. I feel like they really leveled up in summer. I think that they played pretty well here in the bot lane at Worlds. Doesn't mean that you're not right, that they shouldn't try to go there anyway, but it's just, I still think it's so difficult to actually, be able to pin down how they need to play it. And I think at the end of the day, like, it almost sounds like a cop-out, but you just have to play like at or above your highest level that you've played at before, because Damwon just looks to be a better team. When you watch these two series, I do think that mechanically, I think that as far as setup on round objectives, as far as actually how they're playing the map and playing side lanes, Damwon just looked way better, I think, than what EDG showed us today. So you have to play a better game. You have to be able to, perform in the early game especially, because I think if there's anywhere that Damwon is like weak for being the best team in the world standards, it's the early game. Because T1 was able to, especially when you look back to the finals, get significant early leads. Damwon falls behind sometimes, and you often need that buffer to have a chance against them in the mid and the late game because they're so good there.
And overall, neither of these teams are weak. They're the two best teams remaining
incredible
in the world, right? But I do think the point stands that, and as we actually have been talking about over the last couple of days, every time we start honing in towards the eventual champion, we begin to rehash those discussions of what makes a champion and what are the most integral things to success at a world championship. And one of the things that I believe have all three come to a conclusion about is that it is no one singular thing, right? It is the amalgamation of multiple things. It is about peaking at the right moment, both in your play and your strategy. It is, your ability to draft and your understanding of the strengths and weaknesses, not only of the champions and the meta that you are afforded and handed, but also of what your players are capable of doing. Gen G, in a number of ways, was an example of that today, although they didn't get the win. Sticking to their guns and their style is what allowed them to even get to the 5-game series.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there are teams that will pop up from time to time and they look really good on an international level because the meta happens to suit the style that they can play to the best of their ability. Why I am so impressed by teams like T1, in the past when they had these long streaks of dominance, and now Damwon today, is that they feel meta-proof. They can play it all. They can play different styles. They can adapt, right? And that is not a skill that a lot of teams have. It's one of the most consistent things you'll hear from pros after they fall out of Worlds. Well, the meta didn't really suit us, or it's not really our style, right? A lot of the summer split style was roaming supports, very heavily playing engaged supports. There wasn't really any enchanters. The meta changed significantly coming into Worlds, but Damwon looks just as good, if not better, which I just find incredible.
So I definitely think that Damwon is quite a flexible team, but in my opinion, what ultimately makes them the best is their ability to team fight. It's unbelievable how good they are at team fighting. Like in their setups, in their approach, in their patience, that is why, often we've all got teams domestically that you're just like, oh, they're 10k gold down, there's a way, they've done it before, right? For Europe, it was the Mad Lions, right? We talked about them. And then when Mad Lions had a 10k gold lead against Damwon, it was Damwon's team fighting that managed to turn the game around for them. And it's just the way in which they approach fights, to me, is what separates them from everyone else in the world. It feels to me like no one can compete for them in the 5v5. You just have to give them a small opportunity and they'll crush you every time.
I agree so much. I mean, Game 5 to me against T1 was just such a masterclass in how to actually play around their win conditions as well. It's not even that they just always draft the same style and team fight that one way. It's like, you look at Game 5, T1 had Gumayusi on his unbeatable Aphelios. They have a late game Azir, and they just made it look completely worthless because they played around the lack of engage that T1 had drafted for. T1 drafted comfort, T1 drafted scaling, and Damon's just like, well, guess what? You're never going to get in range of us. We're never going to miss position. We're going to play the angles perfectly, play the vision and the setup to Vetti's point perfectly. So T1 could never even enter the Dragon area in that 5th game. They ended up having to just flip at Baron because they're like, well, we're never going to be able to fight them. They're never going to let us use our scaling.
Right, and I like the fact that you call out T1 comfort picks in that situation because of how well Damwon played it, almost made T1 look uncomfortable, right? We talked multiple times about, ooh, are they shy on pulling the trigger because they don't know if it's the perfect angle. They can't find the perfect angle, and so they keep backing off of those opportunities to fight until they ultimately get backed into a corner and have to take a stab at something. And that is, again, the team that has pushed Damwon the furthest so far at Worlds.
Yeah.
In fact, the only team to take a game off them. The question is, can EDG do the same, and can they do it once more?
And ultimately, what I will say is, based on how we've been speaking, it's pretty obvious that everyone has a consensus
That
Damwon
EDG will win.
that Damwon are the heavy favorites going into this final. And I've seen many people tweeting about like 3-0, easy for Damwon, like T1 was the toughest opponent for them. And like, I understand where that sentiment comes from, and I get it. The caveat for me is that I do not think Damwon have always had the best drafts. Like, we talked so much about Jin yesterday that like, I still have my doubts around Ghost and what he is super comfortable on, and how you can make him uncomfortable as a player. I also think that while Damwon are creative in ways in which using even weaker drafts and still finding success with it, that's because of the caliber of the players. That doesn't necessarily mean that they always draft themselves for success. And I think that while I am expecting Damwon to win, and while I think Damwon should still be considered heavy favorites, I believe that EDG still have the caliber of players and the tools in order to actually create some chaos and maybe even create the upset.
Final word.
I was gonna give you one shot at to close it out, but you beat me to it, man. All right, well, everybody, this does conclude the semifinals. We will be back on November 6th for a 1-hour special edition of Worlds Countdown at noon Central European Time, 4 a.m. Pacific. Set your alarms. Wake up early prior to the 2021 World Finals. As we leave you, though, let's take a look back at our favorite moments from the semifinals with our Axe Effect highlights. Stay healthy, stay safe, and be good to each other. Good night.
Good night.
Told you I'd be a great host.
No more words. No more.
Welcome back to Worlds 2021, taking place in Reykjavik, Iceland. T1 and Damwon Kia fight for a shot at another title.
Damwon Kia, they're going in. Gumayusi going down. Kana forced to back away, carrying it. Faker just getting torn apart. It's all too easy for Damwon Kia. Early game close and contested, but mid to late, Damwon Kia in absolute control here in game one. Keep your eyes on that one. They find the reset. That's going to be one. Frozen Thralls now coming out. Damwon Kia getting routed in the river, but Canyon still standing strong for a moment. No. Double, triple for Gumayusi. Follow-up kill. A smite steal from Owner. The rookies on T1 are making their mark at Worlds.
An incredible punch back here from T1.
It is fight or die in the final moments, and Showmaker finds Carrier. Faker getting burned down, but Kana, can he turn it back? Kana, can he make it happen? It is not enough. Damwon Kia will not be stopped.
They have the Elder Dragon, they have a wave, they have everything they need to go to the World Finals.
Today, Gen G and EDG fight for the right to challenge them for the world title.
Being zoned away, Rascal going for the pushback. Viper getting kicked. Viper flashes and stays alive. Health bar is low. Will be able to dash across the wall. Lee Sin drops, and Viper this time around saved his summoned spells for the right time. This is how you do it. He's going to miss his first engage. Clint finds the kick, and they're going to find that first kill.